Hi everybody, welcome back to the Claremont Classic Garage. Today we've got a couple of little metalworking projects to do, so let's get started. Here's the first one. This is our Kubota B3000 that we use to clear our snow. And I want to make like a safety catch that I can put on. See, it's got this extra pin. This is for the sweeper attachment that goes on here. So it's something to do with that. We don't use it for our snowblower, but it's a good solid pin. What I want to do is make like a strut that hangs down from here and hooks on the bottom of our quick hitch here, so I can relieve the hydraulic pressure from inside the cab, yet the snowblower will still stay off the ground. Because what happens if I park this thing outside when I'm working in here in the wintertime, when I go to get it, when I first start it up, the hydraulics are really, really lazy. It takes them forever to get working. I know it should work instantaneously, but it sometimes gets just so cold that it doesn't. So I'd like to, on those cold days, when I take it outside, put this little hook on here so I don't leave this thing hanging off the hydraulic ram all day, because you can see it does leak a little bit. And eventually, after a few hours, the thing settles down. And that ram is like $600. So we won't be buying a new one anytime soon. So the easiest thing is just to make a hook. So I've got some junk here on the workbench. I don't know what this thing is. I found it somewhere. So I made this out of an old piece of plate on the lathe. That's going to go in there and get welded. That'll go over that pin. And then this hook over here is going to weld onto the bottom. And that's what'll grab the bottom of the quick hitch. So the first thing I got to do is get the paint stuff cleaned off of this, and we can go ahead and get it welded up. Okay, so far so good. Now we can figure out how far down we've got to put our little hook here. I've got it marked so I know where it has to go. Now we're going to cut this guy to length, and we can get ready to weld it together. Okay, there we go. Now I've never filmed myself welding before, but I'm going to attempt to do it now. And if it's too bright or whatever, I won't include it in the final video, but I'll try. Some good old-fashioned, messy, spatter-flying flex core welding that we do here in Claremont. Oh, the paint's on fire. That should do it. Now we'll go cool it off. The bend, the angle on this thing might not be exactly perfect. We may have to tweak that a little bit, but that's the least of our worries. So it goes up in there like that. Oh no, look at that. Well, it fits perfectly. You could straighten that out just a hair. I might flatten that end out just a hair, but the rest of it's good. No, that end needs a little more. Okay, I see what I got to do. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm liking that. Now, before I waste a whole bunch of time cleaning it all up and painting it, I'm going to drop the blower and make sure this thing will actually hold it up. Well, here goes nothing. Okay, well, it mostly holds it up. Because we're only holding one side, it kind of tilts a little bit. But you know what? I really don't care. When it's sitting outside for the day, that's good enough for me. And it's on there, it's good and solid. That's fine. Alrighty, we'll lift her back up. Then we can take that thing off and get it cleaned. And a nice coat of Kubota gray finishes it off. All right, that turned out pretty well. I like it. Awesome. Now I wonder, when I'm not using it, I don't think it will just sit here. Like, I wouldn't trust it if I'm out blowing snow or something to leave it there like that, because it could so easily bounce out of there and come down. So I don't think I'll be doing that. But you know what? It could just hang around in the cab, and when I need it, I can use it. Here's our next project. After the spectacular failure of my first wheel bearing puller, we're going to try to make another one. I needed a piece of 1/2 by 1 flat bar, and of course I didn't have one. So we're going to make one. I got to cut a piece off of this, and then we'll just machine it to the shape we need it. All right. Okie dokie, we got this thing in the old chop saw. This might take a minute. It's pretty heavy stuff. Now I've got our workpiece mounted in the milling machine here. Sorry, I gotta get this handle on. I've only got a 1/2 inch wide end mill, and this is 1/2 inch material. So that's all right. We'll go back and forth in a couple of passes, and we'll get this side cleaned up. Then we'll flip it over and square up the other side. Then we can drill a hole through it. So we're just taking little cuts at a time. It probably would have been prudent to make 2 saw cuts, right? So I had a little nicer edge to deal with here, but then I wouldn't get to play with the mill. I wish I had a little wider end mill. All I've got is a 1/2 inch one, and this is 1/2 inch stock, so we'll muddle our way through it. Yeah, that came out pretty nicely. This one little mark here should disappear when we make it round on the lathe. So now I'm going to pull it out of here, deburr it, and then we'll flip it over and square up the other side. That worked out pretty well. Now I have to lay out a mark and drill right through the center of this thing. Okay, so we drilled a hole right through the center, a 1/2 inch hole. Now we can use this bolt that we put in. We're going to mount it up in the lathe, and we're going to start working on making this thing round. So here we go. Yeah, we'll just keep taking these tiny little cuts. Till we get it down where we need it to be. Let's see what we've accomplished so far. So we've just taken the corners off this end. I don't think it's really touching the other end. No. So that means we weren't exactly all that accurate in getting our hole centered. But it doesn't matter. Because we'll be taking enough off that it just won't matter in the end. This end is round now. And the other end is coming around. Once we've got this end rounded off, then we're going to start measuring. We have to get this thing to 2 3/8 or 2.375. There you can see we've got both ends round it off, and we've got it at 2.375, which is exactly where we want it. So I just cleaned up the face of this. Now what we have to do, we have to machine a step into it so it kind of fits up into the bearing, yet pulls on the back of the race here. So we have to make a step that's got a diameter of 1.600, and we're going to go about halfway through this. So here we go, the last cut of this step. Let's see what it looks like. Yeah, good. We're getting there now. So you can see here our bearing fits nicely over there. That's good. So what we're going to do now is chamfer this off here and just put a little chamfer on there because we need to get it kind of in there. It's got to go in like that and then turn, right? So anything you can relieve off it to make it so you can get it through there, the better. It'll make more sense as we go along. I'm very bad at explaining things. So there you go. We've knocked those off. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this thing around and we're going to chamfer, take a nice hunk off the back side of this. So here we go. A little cross feed. And then this. And that's how you do a taper. Unscientifically, of course. I think I've told you more than once, I'm no machinist. But I muddle my way through. So I'll keep doing this and I'll show you what I've done once it's done. So next thing we have to do is use the mill. Because if this is the bolt we're going to use to pull this thing out, right? This has to be slotted so that it can go in there like that and then be pulled straight to pull the bearing out. So we're going to get this thing chucked up in the mill and start working on that. All right, so we've used the mill to slot out this hole. That's the first step of this procedure. We'll get this thing out of here and get it cleaned up. So we use the mill to slot out that hole. Now what we have to do is mount it in the vise like that and take a plunge cut out of here just to relieve this a little tiny bit to give us the angle that we need to get this thing down through the bearing. Okay, so you can see here we've got this thing mounted here on a bit of an angle. So now we're going to go at it with the mill and see if we can get that cut. This is steel, so it does, you know, it's not like cutting balsa wood. But you can see it's cutting. Okay, that should be all we need. Unplunge. Let me clean up the chips and we'll have a look at it. Okay, let's see if this thing works after I finish throwing it on the floor. Okay, here we go. So we've got it as far as we can bend it or deflect it or whatever you want to call it, articulate it, and then in it goes. Look at that. Perfect. And then what will happen is we'll have a plate that goes over the end of the axle tube or a little bit of pipe or something so we can pull the bearing out. Awesome. So sooner or later we'll have a job where we can try this thing. All right, so that's all done. Axle bearing puller version 2.0 as opposed to version 1.0, which was a colossal failure. I'll show you what happened with that. Version 1.0 here was too small, and it went in there like that, and it pulled on the actual rollers, and because I had underestimated how snug this thing was in the housing, it didn't pull the bearing out. It just busted the cage here, or the housing, and pulled all the guts out of it. So we had a big problem. Whereas version 2.0, you can see there, grabs the bearing completely. And there's not really that much of a step inside the axle that this seats against. So we should have plenty of clearance here. Worst case, I'll have to chuck it up in the lathe and take a tiny bit more off of the outside of it, but I think we should be okay. Now, I won't know until I'm working on a rear end again whether or not this one will actually work, but I have the utmost confidence that it will be successful. And that's that. Our two little metalworking projects are complete. And that'll do it for that one. We're under a winter storm warning for tonight. We're supposed to get 15 to 25 centimeters of snow. That is, I don't know, 6 to 10 inches worth. And it's supposed to be the wet, heavy, nasty stuff. So we've got the old Kubota here, fueled up, ready to go. I just got to open the door and start driving. So I'm going to take off for now. I hope you enjoyed fooling around some metal with us. Hope you'll come back and see us again. And until then, I'm Kevin saying so long from the Claremont Classic Garage.